He said he'd be back in 10 minutes. That was 2,557 days ago. Jerome Walker was a part-time graphics engineer and a full-time father living in Macon, Georgia. On a sweltering summer afternoon in 2015, he stepped out to buy a part for his car. His daughter, just 9 years old at the time, was the last person to see him. He never came back. For 7 years, there were no leads, no surveillance footage, no phone activity, no witnesses. Jerome had vanished, as if the southern heat had swallowed him whole. Then in October 2022, a young boy chasing a stray soccer ball wandered into an overgrown lot near a freight depot on the outskirts of Savannah. Hidden in the brush, he found a weathered, adult-sized denim jacket stiff with mud and age. In the pocket was a crumpled scrap of paper, barely readable but still intact. On it, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "I didn't agree, and I was going to tell." On July 4th, 2015, Jerome had an early dinner with his daughter. Malia later recalled that her dad had been quieter than usual that day. No questions about homework, no silly jokes at the table. After washing the dishes, he put on a light jacket, slid his wallet into his back pocket, and said, "I'm just going to grab a part real quick. I'll be back before dark." Malia nodded. She stood at the doorway watching until his figure disappeared behind the wooden fence. By 9 p.m., worry had crept into the house. Malia called her aunt, and soon 2 neighbors joined the search. Jerome's car was still in the driveway. His phone, an old Nokia, sat untouched on the kitchen counter. No one knew if he had walked or if someone had picked him up. No one had seen or heard anything strange. That night, Malia was taken to stay with her aunt, and local police received the missing persons call. But for an adult with no signs of violence or accident, Jerome's case was marked as non-urgent. In the days that followed, family and friends organized their own search. A cousin flew in from Chicago and walked the bus, routes, junkyards, and back roads around Macon. Old college friends printed flyers and created a Facebook page for tips, but nothing turned up. Jerome had disappeared, like a footprint swept off hot Georgia pavement. During that first week, the effort was frantic but hopeful. Relatives visited every auto parts shop within a 10-mile radius, asking about a tall man in a denim jacket with a soft voice and close-cropped beard. No one recognized the description. At one store off Houston Avenue, a clerk vaguely remembered someone asking about old spark plugs. Maybe it was him, maybe not. There were no cameras, no receipts. The local police force, stretched thin, assigned a single part-time investigator, Officer Ricky Barnes, a retired Atlanta cop, now winding down his career in Macon. Barnes was the only one who meticulously documented each potential stop Jerome could have made and reviewed the last calls on his phone, all to family or longtime clients. No fraud, no big debts. Jerome lived simply, used cash, had no credit cards or bank account. He left almost no digital trail. What puzzled Barnes most was that Jerome left his phone behind. For someone who booked freelance work through messages, this was strange. Had someone called the house? Had Jerome expected to be gone just minutes, not needing his phone? If so, who reached him? And how if the phone never rang? One weak theory surfaced. Someone picked him up, and Jerome didn't think twice about it. But there were no witnesses, no unfamiliar vehicles. The neighborhood had no public cameras. Most neighbors were elderly or asleep early. Only one teenager claimed to hear a motorcycle speed past around 7:30 p.m., but saw nothing. After 14 days, the case was downgraded to inactive. A paper map taped to the kitchen wall at Jerome's aunt's house, covered in red pins marking searched areas, began to gather dust. The family never stopped, but belief began to wear thin with time. In the months that followed, Jerome Walker's name faded from everyday conversation. In the neighborhood, some speculated he'd left to start over somewhere else. Others, quieter, feared something worse, but didn't say it out loud. To speak, it was to admit he might not be alive. Malia, his daughter, never believed her father had left willingly. She kept a spot open for him at the dinner table still, wrote him letters, and tucked them under her pillow. Sometimes they were sweet, small things. "I missed 2 goals at soccer today." You'd laugh at me. Other times, just a single line. "Where are you, Dad?" The police had long since stopped investigating. Barnes retired in late 2016. Jerome's file was handed to a younger officer, someone who had no connection to the family and, by most accounts, never fully read the 92-page report. A year passed, then 2. Occasionally, a call would come through the hotline. Someone swearing they saw a man matching Jerome's description at a bus station or sleeping by the woods. Each tip brought a flicker of hope, then disappointment, then silence. In year 3, the family began holding Remembrance Day, said not to say goodbye, but to keep Jerome's name alive in the community. They gathered at a small neighborhood park, posted his photo around the playground, released balloons with notes attached. If you know Jerome Walker, please tell us. But the balloons drifted away, and visitors to the park grew fewer with time. Life, as it always does, moved on, just not with Jerome in it. Then came October 2022. A light storm swept through the outskirts of Savannah, flooding several abandoned lots. As the water receded, a group of kids chasing a stray soccer ball wandered into a fenced-off area. An old cargo depot long out of use. In a low bush, one child tripped over something hard, half buried in the dirt. It was a weathered light blue denim jacket soaked with red clay. As it dried in the sun, the frayed collar and unique button pattern came into view. When police arrived, they found a rotted slip of paper inside the jacket's pocket. Fragile, but still legible. Written in jagged pen strokes, barely holding together. I didn't agree, and I was going to tell. Cảm ơn bạn nhạc. Dưới đây là phiên bản trình bày liền mạch không ngắt đồng nhiều. After the discovery of the denim jacket and the handwritten note, Jerome Walker's missing persons case was officially reopened as a criminal investigation. This time, a young investigator from Savannah named Lauren Cobb took over. She was sharp, methodical, and deeply committed to cases involving missing Black Americans that had slipped through the cracks. With patience and digital forensics skills, Lauren began re-examining details everyone else had, long abandoned. The first lead came from Jerome's old laptop, which still held dozens of graphic design files. Product, packaging, banner ads, mock websites, none linked to any known brands. File names were vague. Client 32. Cover guy Smile V2. Package Altver 3 PSD. Most emails came from now defunct Gmail accounts, except one, adriverpro74@gmail.com. It was still active, and a trace revealed it had once logged in from a public computer near the abandoned Savannah freight yard, just under 3 miles from where Jerome's jacket was found. The second clue was a faded Western Union receipt, dated June 29th, 2015, 1 week before Jerome vanished, showing a $480 cash transfer. The recipient field was blank, just a code. That meant whoever collected it didn't need ID, just the number. Someone had taken Jerome's money and disappeared, without a name. While Lauren followed the digital trail, Malia, now 16, enlisted a friend to recover a corrupted file from her dad's drive. It was a mock-up for an herbal supplement package with the slogan, "Calm from the roots, power to the nerve." No FDA mark, no barcode, no trace of the product online. It looked like something never meant to exist, or something not allowed to. Lauren began to wonder, had Jerome unknowingly worked with a group involved in illegal product distribution? Had he discovered something he wasn't supposed to see and decided to speak out? If so, that decision may have sealed his fate. Lauren shifted her focus to places Jerome used to frequent: auto shops, gas stations, diners. Most people didn't remember him until she met Miss Velma, manager of an old laundromat called Silver Suds. Velma remembered Jerome well. Polite, came weekly. He had this look, far off, tired. Last time I saw him was a few days before he went missing. He was talking to a man outside. Looked like a construction worker, but drove a silver Cadillac. License plate was half covered with tape. No cameras. Survived from that time, but Velma's memory matched something buried in the original case file. A tip from a homeless man who called the police claiming he saw someone shoved into a car near Railroad and Jefferson. The call had come in at 7:52 p.m. on July 4th. 2015, and was dismissed as unreliable. Lauren tracked down the man, Marlon Keys, now sober, and working at a church. When shown a photo of Jerome, he froze. "I can't be sure, but yeah, I think that was the guy." He didn't yell, just said, "Don't do this. I got a little girl." That sentence, never recorded in any report, changed everything. Forensics on the jacket revealed 3 things. The mud wasn't from Macon, but dark river soil found near Savannah. The inner pocket had once held a small, rectangular object, now missing. And there was a clean cut near the bottom hem, likely from a utility blade. More shocking was what was found nearby, buried beside. A dead crepe myrtle. A cheap orange lighter, a roll of gray duct tape, and a blurry Polaroid. The photo showed Jerome sitting at a wooden table. Under dim yellow light, eyes filled with fear. Behind him stood a half-visible man in a hoodie, facing away from the camera. No metadata, no location. Just a moment, frozen. When Lauren showed the photo to Jerome's sister, Sarah, she nearly collapsed. That's the shirt he wore to Malia's friend's party. And that's how he sat when he was too tired to speak. The photo didn't solve the case, but it shattered any illusion that Jerome had simply walked away. It opened a door to a truth bigger than any one clue. From that moment, Jerome's disappearance was no longer a matter of missing evidence. It had become something far more complex, a maze of broken signals, each one real, each one terrifyingly incomplete. There was one thing no one had ever mentioned during the 7 years Jerome Walker was missing. Not because anyone was hiding it, but because no one thought it mattered. And yet sometimes the smallest, most overlooked pieces are the ones that change everything. When Sarah, Jerome's sister, was invited to a case review with investigator Lauren Cobb, she brought a small box containing some of Jerome's old belongings, a few notebooks, a pocket watch, and an unsent letter. The letter was handwritten and dated 2 months before he vanished. On it, Jerome had written, "To Jay, Staley. If I don't call back this week, you know what to do." When Lauren asked who Jay Staley was, Sarah hesitated before replying quietly, "Jason, Jerome's best friend from high school. They used to live together before Malia was born, but they had a falling out, a big one. No one really brought him up after that." Lauren found Jason Staley living in Decatur, over 2 hours from Macon. He was a solitary, rough-edged man with a petty theft record, but no recent ties to Jerome. Yet when shown the letter, Jason fell silent. Finally, he admitted, "I thought it didn't matter anymore. It was nothing big, but if you're telling me Jerome disappeared, maybe I was wrong to keep quiet." Jason described a phone call he received in early June 2015. Jerome sounded uneasy about a group he was working with. Not official clients, but middlemen for file transfers. They spoke with northern accents, used nicknames instead of real names, and had sent him strange photos to adjust lighting for print. The images included warehouses, workers with carts, and crates that looked like medical containers. Jason advised him to drop the job, but Jerome hesitated. He said, "I just need a few more weeks to stack money. Malia's going into 4th grade. School ain't cheap." A few days later, Jerome called again, voice low. "If I don't call back this week, you know what to do." Then nothing. Lauren returned to the office and reprinted all of Jerome's submitted design work. One file stood out, packaging for something labeled Green Line Herbal, with a faint QR code printed near the base. When scanned, the code didn't link to a website. It opened a cloud storage folder. Inside was a single image, a warehouse layout, complete with marked access roads. That left no doubt. Jerome had unknowingly, or perhaps knowingly, created design materials for something illegal. And if he planned to speak up, that decision may have cost him everything. After finding the hidden file, Lauren revisited Jerome's old neighborhood, not just to hunt clues, but to speak with people who'd lived beside him for years and may never have been properly questioned. 2 doors down lived Mr. Luther, a 72-year-old widower, often seen reading the newspaper on his porch. In 2015, he told reporters he hadn't seen anything the night Jerome vanished. But this time when Lauren sat with him, he paused and said, "I'm not sure I told the full truth. Maybe I was scared I'd get it wrong." Luther recalled that hot July 4th evening, too warm to sleep. He'd sat on the porch with a beer and a hand fan. Just before 8 p.m., he saw a silver car stop in front of Jerome's house. The headlights were off, but the engine kept running. Jerome walked out, approached the car, said something, then stood still. Moments later, the back door opened and 2 men in black, their faces hidden, stepped out and flanked Jerome. There was no violence, no dragging, just an eerie stillness. Then, Jerome got into the car himself. The vehicle pulled away without lights, soundless. Luther wasn't sure if it was a kidnapping. Could have been friends, could have been clients. But there was no wind that night, and I felt a chill. Anyway, when asked why he never reported it, he looked down. "I didn't want to stir trouble. Thought maybe he'd just left town a while. But now..." His story matched an overlooked note in the original case file. A delivery driver for Amazon once mentioned that on July 2nd, 2 days before the disappearance, he saw a man standing for a long time at the corner near Jerome's house, watching like he was waiting for something. It hadn't been pursued. Now all those tiny silences were forming a much darker picture. Jerome hadn't been ambushed. He saw it coming, and maybe he thought he could manage it. Or worse, he knew from the moment that car pulled up, he no longer had a choice. While Lauren continued digging through neighbor accounts, it was Malia, Jerome's daughter, who uncovered the next turning point. Now 16, she quietly spent time in Aunt Sarah's storage room, sifting through her father's old belongings. In a box of books, she found a softcover giveaway notebook, edges crumbling from humidity. Most pages contained mundane notes, screw sizes, ink, mixing ratios, printing codes. But near the back, 3 handwritten lines made her sit on the floor in shock. It was Jerome's handwriting. Brief. No explanation. Just this. Green line isn't medicine. It's a front. They use the containers for something else. I found out when I picked up the wrong poster order. There's a camera. If I disappear, find it. Malia snapped a photo and rushed to Lauren. The note matched everything the team had started to suspect. Jerome had designed boxes labeled herbal, medicine, but it was a cover. What was actually inside the containers remained unclear, but Jerome had seen it, and that moment might have set everything in motion. Lauren traced every printing order under the name Green Line Herbal from that year. No company was registered under that name in Georgia, but one small printing shop near Atlanta had fulfilled a bulk order for plain herbal packaging. No logo, email only, file from a freelancer. The designer on duty recalled it. When shown Jerome's layout, he confirmed, "Yeah, I remember this one." But it wasn't Jerome who picked it up. It was 2 white guys in an unmarked pickup. Said the designer sent them. The big question was no longer whether Jerome was involved. It was, what did he find out, and what did he do once? He knew? A man who spent his days raising a daughter, fixing cars, and making quiet design work had accidentally touched something no one wanted found. And instead of ignoring it like others might have, he documented it, captured it, and left behind 3 final lines in a battered notebook. But the camera Jerome mentioned, what was it? Where was it? Did it still exist? That became the new mission. Not to find the man, but to chase what he left behind, like what Jerome called evidence. After discovering the note in Jerome's old notebook, investigator Lauren Cobb focused all her efforts on the final 2 words he had left behind. There's a camera. In the world of investigations, a camera means hope. The possibility of a timeline, of verification, of a truth you can see. But the strange part was, no one had ever found any relevant footage connected to Jerome's disappearance in the 7 years since he vanished. So where was the camera he mentioned? Lauren began, cross-referencing every location Jerome might have visited before disappearing. The print shop, the auto parts store, the cafe where he met clients, and the industrial zones near the abandoned freight yard. She worked with the city's infrastructure department to request a list of all public and private cameras, operational around mid-2015. That's when she found something disturbing. There had been a traffic surveillance camera installed at the intersection nearest to the Savannah yard. The exact route marked on the warehouse layout Jerome had accessed. But the footage from that camera had been deleted from the city's system due to a storage failure exactly 3 days after Jerome disappeared. To make matters worse, the private company contracted to maintain those cameras had gone out of business in 2017. The only former technician Lauren could reach sighed when asked. "Yeah, I remember that data loss," he said, "but we were juggling so many outages back then. I never imagined some blurry footage could mean anything." Lauren began to wonder, was the footage lost just bad luck, or had someone long before her already known what to erase? The investigation began to unravel. What had once seemed like solid evidence became a trail of unprovable clues. Jerome's image in a blurry Polaroid, the warehouse map hidden in a QR code, Luther's eyewitness account, the mud-stained jacket, all real, all haunting, but none strong enough to prove anything. And now, even the camera, their last concrete lead, felt like a ghost. Lauren sat at her desk, flipping through a case file, now well over 100 pages thick, each page containing a theory that had broken down halfway through. She began to understand what her predecessors must have felt when you know you're touching the truth, but every step closer just turns it to dust. She wrote a single line in her investigation log. If there's nothing left to verify, are we creating a story that no one can prove false, but no one can prove true either? The crisis wasn't just in what was hidden, so it was in no longer knowing what was real. Then, just as things stalled, Lauren received an anonymous email sent to her public case inbox. Subject line, "I used to work with them. I don't know Jerome, but I know the warehouse." No. Sender. No personal details. Just one paragraph and an attachment, a grainy photo of an old shipping ledger, faded but legible. It listed a location, Depot 9, Zone 4B, Green Line Shipping Yard. Lauren immediately contacted the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, requesting urgent access to Zone 4B at the Savannah port. The area had been decommissioned since 2018, but according to old records, it had once been leased by an international freight company, later dissolved for irregular cargo documentation. They found Warehouse 9, now a hollow concrete shell, vines spilling through, broken roofing filled with dust and rotting wood, crates In the back corner, behind a pile of collapsed pallets, the forensic team discovered an old circuit box, the kind used for early 2010 surveillance setups. No hard drive, no monitor. But in the cabinet beneath it, a micro SD card was still slotted into place. Back in the lab, the data appeared encrypted, but not erased. After 3 weeks of recovery work, they restored one video file, 1 minute and 17 seconds long. The footage was grainy, recorded from a high ceiling, angle covering only part of the warehouse. In the video, a tall, thin man wearing a baseball cap opens a shipping crate. His face appears for only a second, but Lauren knew. It was Jerome. He looked into the crate, paused, then backed away, slowly, eyes locked on what he'd seen. For the last 10 seconds of the footage, he stood, frozen, hand gripping the wooden crate's edge. No sound. No one else in frame. But what haunted Lauren most, what kept her up for nights, was the object in his hand. A small orange lighter, the same kind found buried beside his jacket 7 years later. The video wasn't proof of a crime. It didn't show what happened after, but it confirmed something irrefutable. Jerome had been there. He had seen something, and he hadn't just walked away, he'd been taken. But just as Lauren prepared to show the video to the family, an unexpected backlash erupted. Some higher-level investigators questioned the timing. They warned that the clip might be staged, the micro SD planted to mislead. A veteran investigative journalist in the region even wrote, "How convenient that the one clue everyone missed for 7 years shows up anonymously in an email." Even in the light, the shadows remained. As soon as people began to doubt the very evidence they had once prayed for, the disappearance of Jerome Walker stopped being a mystery and became a maze of belief. Got it. Here is the seamless English translation of your provided Vietnamese text, formatted as one flowing narrative. By the end of 2023, Jerome Walker's case was reclassified, no longer listed as missing under unknown circumstances, but as a case with potential criminal elements insufficient evidence to prosecute. A dry bureaucratic label, but one that finally pulled Jerome's name out from the shadows of administrative neglect. The family was notified that all investigative efforts had been closed for now. No arrests, no charges. But there was a small, unofficial gathering at the Savannah police office where the people who had followed the case for over a year sat down together, sharing everything they knew, believed, and felt. Lauren placed 3 items on the table: the blurry Polaroid photo, the orange lighter, and the 1 minute 17-second video clip. She didn't read a report or present any conclusions. Instead, she simply told the story, as if speaking directly to Malia. She talked about a father who worked quietly, who wasn't a hero, wasn't a perfect victim, but someone who came to the edge of a choice and chose not to stay. Silent. Sarah, sitting beside her daughter, held Malia's hand tightly. She didn't cry. No one did. But in that small room, everyone felt something wash over them, like a rain that doesn't fall, yet still makes your shirt wet. The loss no longer centered on where is Jerome. It was, how did we let someone like Jerome be left alone for so long? What haunts this case isn't the lack of evidence, it's the silence that lasted 7 years. During those years, every clue had once been seen by someone, heard by someone, felt by someone, but no one connected the dots. Not because they were bad people, but because they thought, maybe it's nothing, or not my business. And so, Jerome didn't vanish in one single night. He disappeared piece by piece in countless little cuts of indifference. Lauren ended the meeting by pinning a blank sheet of paper to the board. She wrote, "If you're the last person to see someone, and you feel something is off, it's not your fault. But if you stay silent, then it starts becoming ours." The room was silent. In that moment, everyone understood. Jerome may never return, but silence must not return either. In the spring of 2024, Malia, now 18, organized a small exhibit called The Shadow Left Behind at the Macon Public Library. It wasn't a true crime exhibit or a missing persons memorial. It was about memory, about ordinary people time tried to erase. Inside a space no larger than 100 square meters, she laid out a sequence of objects: the denim jacket, dried under soft yellow light, the Polaroid photo beneath a glass panel, and her father's old notebooks, with the final 3 lines enlarged and suspended midair, hanging between the ceiling and the floor. She didn't call it a memorial. She called it a trace that doesn't fade, because to Malia, Jerome had never truly disappeared. He might no longer walk through the front door, make morning coffee, or straighten her collar on the first day of school. But he was still there, in how she watches people, in how she doesn't dismiss things that seem unimportant. In every moment she pauses when she sees someone, looking around and no one looking back. The exhibit drew over 300 visitors in its first 2 days. Some had never heard of Jerome, but brought the names of their own missing loved ones whose stories had never made the news. A black woman from Montgomery quietly shared the story of her sister who vanished in 1994 after a night shift at a packing plant. An elderly white man from Birmingham brought a photo of his wife saying she once mentioned meeting someone named Jerome while living in Macon back in 2010, and maybe, just maybe, it was the same man. No one could confirm anything, but strangely, the atmosphere wasn't heavy like a funeral. People talked. They wrote notes and stuck them to the wall. I won't. Stay silent. I was once afraid to speak. Jerome reminded me to call someone I haven't spoken to in 3 years. They didn't come looking for answers. They came to hold each other up. A local journalist asked Malia, if there's one thing you want people to remember about your dad, what would it be? She paused for a long time, then said, he wasn't famous. He wasn't perfect, but he tried to do the right thing, even when no one stood with him. And that more than anything is what stays with the viewer. Not an unsolved mystery, but a man, Jerome Walker, who once chose not to look away, even when the cost of that choice was his entire life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story of Jerome Walker, an ordinary man living in a not-so-big city, doing a not-so-famous job, and loving his child through the quiet everyday things. Maybe you'd never heard of him before. Maybe you've scrolled past names, faces, and missing persons whose stories never made the front page. But if you're still here, still listening at this final moment, then maybe somewhere in your heart, you're holding on to something that matters. The belief that every person deserves to be heard, even when they can't speak for themselves anymore. This story isn't just about a disappearance, it's about memory, about the things we choose not to forget. Jerome may not have been found. But if his story makes someone pause, think a little deeper, listen a little longer, then maybe he never truly left. If this video moved you, please consider sharing it with someone. Sometimes it's that quiet act of passing a story along that keeps names like Jerome's alive, in our minds, in our hearts. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next story, where every life deserves a final chapter written with care.